Ah, blah, blah. Wedge Dooge is the name of this episode of Lower Decks. Which means lower decks in Klingon. Yes. So yes, Kal Kat. Cool. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. Um. So basically, there's a slow warp day. The ship's heading on a slower warp day and they have to have a bridge buddy or whatever. So they're like doing different tasks. They have the captain and Ransom on the climbing a mountain, like in Star Trek Five. They have Boimler uses gravity boots, goes up there and crashes, which is right out of Silly Trek. Of course, probably everybody else thought of that too, but yeah, we did too. Back in the day, in '89, so as teenagers. So, what happened if you crashed? It went down to the trees. Because he almost does, but they catch it. Anyway, so but on the so while that's going on, the Boimler also thinks that he misinterprets them being the commander being Hawaiian, the commander guy. So he's like the Hawaiian thing. He and then they pretend they're Hawaiian at one point, and then they realize they're all from the moon. They were all lying, and they were all from moons of various planets. We also have a Mad Mav in it, who is serving on the ship as one of those Barzan. Yeah. So, yeah, we got a bunch of stuff on the Klingon ship. We show the Klingon lower decks. So we got Klingon ship, the Klingon lower decks. So we have. Yeah. So we have the Klingon ship in on the ship. Everyone, to get rank, you kill the other guy. That Sapatan and slay him, and then you get command, which is kind of like the Mirror Universe, but more like pirates. Like the angry Next Generation Klingons are more like pirate, honor pirate guys. Less like samurai and more like honor pirates. They were more like samurai in the original. They're more like clever and sneaky and stuff, and didn't really go brah and turn it. But you figure after 78 years, something happened to make them more pirate, like piratey. Arr. Yeah. So in the 78 years, even though it was really 30 years between the two shows, Next Generation started 1987 this month, back right around this day. 34 years ago. So yeah. Also on the other channel, we will be releasing Starship Locations next episode, Starship Chimera. So Starship Chimera 2, Starship Locations, Strange Worlds. Go check that out on the Chimera 82405 channel. Go check that out tonight. So yeah, right after Lower Decks here. So yeah, but yeah, it's not Paramount. It's free. You can watch it on YouTube. It's free. Just watch it. It's free, and no one's getting paid. No AdSense. Anyway, so to the crossover here, they mentioned Core instead of Koloth because I was going to mention Koloth, so they're only mentioning Core instead. They could have mentioned Koloth. That was fine. They didn't have to change that. I'm not in the know, so they could have totally done their own thing, but they know they changed it Core and they reference it under a Klingon name, of course. The Great Battle of the Tribble Hunt sounds more impressive if you say it in Klingon. But yes. Yeah. Also. Yeah. Also, a 20 years older version of Tendi appears in the Chimera movie, Chimera pilot. She's in the new one, so you can go check that out. See what she's like 20 years later, because Lower Decks takes place in 2381 this season, and the new show is in 2402, set 20 years later. So you get to see some of the characters from Chimera, and most of the characters from Chimera, and one from Lower Decks just appear. Sort of a pseudo cameo, but there's more. She's in it more than a cameo. She's on the new ship as a 50-something person, roughly late 40s, early 50s. So yeah, so we have that has nothing to do with this episode though. Wedge Dodge also has which also has a Vulcan ship, where the Vulcan this Vulcan has a hunch about fixing the shields or something, and the captain and the other Vulcans are extremely stolid and analytical and there's been large Reddit debates about the Vulcans. Did they suppress their emotions? Did they hide their emotions? What did they do? They were unclear as to what they were doing. Well, being half Vulcan, half Klingon. Yes. Yes. My father was the Vulcan. My mother is a Klingon. That's obviously. Anyway. Fascinating. Anyway, just so yeah, if there were ever a cosplay of the characters from the cast of the Browns, they would be wearing my mother would be wearing a Klingon outfit. That would be a half Vulcan, half Klingon. Anyway, that would not happen, but it would be funny. But the Vulcans were stoic and stolid, and they were doing their analytical thing like they were space engineers. Yeah, fascinating. They were all my late father. They were all acting like engineers. It was hilarious. It was good. Okay, that works. That was great. Klingons were destroy everything. Sister would be half Klingon too as well, so yeah. Klingons it up, but no, she'd be half Klingon. Oh yes. Anyway, so you have these Klingon who's probably going to be on the lower decks later. Probably. The Packlids are actually secretly being given weapons. It turns out this bird of prey commander guy is giving him weapons, so he could be a descendant of the clone Silly and the Clone Koloth from the story. Probably is. There's a fight on the Klingon ship. Here comes the captain, and they flee the ship. Yeah, so the lower decks guy actually gets up in rank in the story, probably by assassinating the bad guy. But it's like, yeah, would that really happen? Well, it would happen in the Silly Trek, so yeah, it would happen in lower decks. It's basically Silly Trek. Starship locations, basically. Now my version's coming out, and yeah. Not official, not associated with Paramount Plus, but it is a weird coincidence to be on the same wavelength since the beginning. Really, the classic Trek even did it as far back as the 80s. Really, Star Trek V being the most Silly Trek episode of Silly Trek movie ever done at the time. Although then Next Generation did one called Insurrection, which was very Silly Trek as well. No, we did have something to do with, unfortunately. And where they threw in yet another reference to our current year. And that one, they were playing hacky sack at one point. Because of course they were. That's right out of On Location. How they read that, I don't know. But back then, maybe there was some sort of early internet version of it that you could read. Probably. And they were reading it. You gotta have hacky sack in here. Why were they playing hacky sack on the planet? Anyway, this one, the Packlid lower decks are all dumb, and they're like, I'm hungry. I think I'm hungry. Which is kind of mean because they're kind of insulting dumb people, but I guess they had to insult some people. They had to do something. The Packlids could all go to Walmart, or they could go. Yeah, so they have a fight, but the Vulcan ship and the Klingon ship eventually show up to fight the Packlid ship at the end, and everything ties in. And they find out they're not from Hawaii, and and they go back, and the Vulcan gets reassigned to somewhere else, probably the Cerritos. But yeah, they didn't show that. And so in the end, we have. This is not the finale. I don't think, although it acted like it. Yeah. That's odd. So, so we have the Packlets and stuff. Oh yeah, the very end credits have a hilarious, it's a Kal Kat moment. The Borg Lord X. And it's just like no silence. And there's like these Borg drones and they're just sitting there and their alcoves going like, it's like the whole end credits is like, yeah. Now who says Kal Kat is not spontaneous? Or at least whoever wrote this was spontaneous. Definitely. I did not write this one, although it certainly is right up there with anything we've, on Cillian Collective and Starship Locations. Totally would have done it. Now, when the other versions of the other stories come out on Starship Locations, when it goes on to Cillian realms, we change the names from the Star Trek names to the Cillian names. Yeah. So as not to get in trouble with Paramount, because then technically making books. So yeah, the names get changed, but you can tell who they are. Anyway, so yeah, so here is Lord X, Dej Tosh, Wedge Tosh, yes, the Great Tribble Hunt is not in the story, but but you can watch the Great Tribble Hunt on the Chimera channel, 82405.